While the unemployment rate overall fell by 1.5 points, for blacks it rose from 16.7 to 16.8%.
Yeah, I don't think the statistics have completely captured the impact that the economic coma that the country was placed into to respond to COVID. I don't think the numbers have completely been factored into the statistics at by the Department of Labor. Number two, it's important for people to keep in mind that $2 trillion in stimulus was pumped into this economy, and that's had a demonstrable effect on what we see, and that points to the fact that in order for the recovery to continue, there's going to need to be continued stimulus. The storm cloud on the horizon is that states and cities are bleeding ready. States and cities' tax revenues are down, and the bill that's pending in the Senate now is the only way to avert what would end up being hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of layoffs at the state and local governmental level. So I wouldn't read too much into these numbers. Certainly, they beat predictions and expectations, but it's sitting on top of a necessary governmental injection of cash into the American economy to try to stabilize things so we can turn the corner.
You know, and let's talk a lot about what's happened across the country this week. We've heard from a number of business leaders here on CNBC who are trying to do their part and trying to increase the diversity across their companies, increase the funding that goes into communities of color and so forth. You know, is that enough? I mean, I guess the other way to ask this question is we've seen protests, problems like this time and again over the years. Are you hearing anything this week that makes you think this time will be different?
I've heard a few business leaders talk about what does it take for the change to be sustainable. And I do think that the protests we see are very different. These protests are widespread. They're not only all over the United States, they're all over the world. These protests are being undertaken by people who are white and black and Hispanic and Asian. And while the trigger and the concern is about racial justice and institutional racism in America, we must make this a moment of transformation. We cannot allow this to slip away from us and hear what people are saying, understand what people are saying, that they want reform when it comes to the economy, policing, criminal justice, and a number of other areas. I feel that this can be different, but for corporate leaders who in many instances have begun to step up, they've got to make their commitment to diversity and inclusion sustainable and a high priority. It can't simply be a crisis management response. It's got to be a sustainable response. If we're serious and if we don't hear what people are saying, we've got to hear, people have to hear the pain, the outrage, the sensibility that enough is enough.